The second in this series of programmes on Mozart is at 9:25, when Sir Colin Davis, with the orchestra of the Royal Opera House, rehearses selections from Don Giovanni and The Marriage of Figaro. Mozart Workshop on 2 later tonight at 9:25. There are 3 BBC music guides associated with the series: Mozart Wind and String Concertos by Alec Hyatt-King, Mozart Piano Concertos by Philip Radcliffe, and Mozart Chamber Music by Alec Hyatt-King. Each one costs £1.50, and all are available at booksellers and music shops. In 10 minutes, the Money programme investigates the investment gap, and another in the series of long-term prospects for Britain's industry. That's in the Money programme. First, the news on 2 from Richard Baker.
Police in Liverpool face a barrage of petrol bombs and other missiles. Before calm returned to the Toxteth district of the city after a night of rioting, 70 policemen had been hurt, some seriously. The local chief constable blames certain blacks for starting the trouble deliberately, but community leaders disagree. The violence centred on Upper Parliament Street, and both black and white youths were involved. Richard Duckinfield reporting.
For 8 hours, police fought a pitched battle against 100 or more white and coloured youths, some as young as 12, the oldest no more than 20. And at the end of it, the chief constable of Merseyside said it was a planned attack on the police. "We were set up," he said. The height of the battle came just after dawn. Stones, bottles, iron bars and petrol bombs were hurled at the police from barricades of upturned and burning cars. It began in Upper Parliament Street, one of the main roads out of the city centre, and ammunition was all around in derelict sites and empty houses. Then, at daylight, ranks of police began a series of charges to break up the gangs spread out in front of them. But as the rioters fell back, they set fire to more buildings and began looting from shops on the way. And still the bricks, stones, lumps and iron were thrown, worst of all the petrol bombs. And against all this, riot shields and visors were not enough. At least 70 policemen were injured and 12 are still in hospital tonight. At one stage, hijacked cars and vans were driven at the police lines. They held their ranks and continued their charges, but it was another 2 hours before the riot had been cleared. The streets were left littered with rubble and burnt-out cars and vans. Thick smoke hung over the area because firemen too had been attacked and couldn't get to the fires. The injured were given first aid behind a screen of fire engines, before being taken to hospital in a fleet of ambulances waiting as close as safety allowed. Some elderly people had been trapped in their homes for several hours, unable to escape the rioting until help arrived. Others travelling to work were caught up in the violence. The trouble started about midnight when gangs of black youths began stoning cars in Upper Parliament Street. One owner said his windscreen was smashed and he was dragged from his car at gunpoint. Police had been standing by for trouble since Friday night, when 2 officers were attacked as they tried to arrest a motorcyclist. The chief constable said it was definitely not a racial incident.
I blame a small group of criminal hooligans who were hell-bent to provoke the police into a situation that would give them an opportunity to attack what is visibly a symbol of authority.
On the streets of Toxteth today, the local community leader had another view.
What happened last night is just the eruption, if you like. We've been saying for a long time now that something has got to be done in terms of jobs, in terms of economic future, and in terms of giving the black community some say in what, or some future in society.
Already estimates of the damage have reached £500,000. In the final analysis, though, it could be much more than that. And tonight, police are on full alert in case the rioting breaks out again.
There have been more attempts in Northern Ireland to end the hunger strikes inside the Maze prison. For the second time in 24 hours, members of the Roman Catholic Commission for Justice and Peace visited the prison and saw the 8 Republican prisoners on hunger strike. We have a report now from Gavin Hewitt.
The search for a solution to the hunger strikes continue to gather pace, with the Irish Commission for Justice and Peace spending the greater part of the day inside the Maze prison. Although the government insists there can be no negotiations, it's apparent intensive discussions have taken place on what possible improvements in prison conditions might occur if the hunger strikes were to end. When the commissioners arrived this morning, they met with Brendan McFarlane, the senior Republican prisoner inside the maze. His attitude to the proposals is thought crucial to their eventual outcome. Another visitor today was Mrs. Goretti MacDonnell, whose husband Joe has now gone 58 days without food and who is reported to be unable to coordinate the most basic movements. His condition ensures that these latest endeavours are the last chance for a solution.
Thousands of Jews and Christian sympathizers have attended a rally in Trafalgar Square against the Palestine Liberation Organization. It's said to have been the biggest ever demonstration by Jews in this country. Gary Lloyd reports.
They came from all parts of the country. Their purpose to press Lord Carrington, the new president of the European Council of Ministers, not to talk to the Palestine Liberation Organization. Chief Rabbi Sir Emanuel Jacobowitz was there with politicians of all parties. Shadow Chancellor Mr. Peter Shaw had this to say.
It is the avowed purpose, and reavowed purpose, of the PLO that they intend the destruction of the State of Israel, the reunification of the original partition by force of arms.
The demonstrators said if Britain had discussions with the PLO, it would be giving political respectability to a terrorist organization.
This afternoon, Lord Carrington flew to Moscow to put forward his EEC-backed plan aimed at getting Soviet troops out of Afghanistan. Lord Carrington's initiative, which calls for a two-stage international conference, has already been criticized by the Soviet press and upset the Italians, who weren't invited to discuss the final details. Tomorrow, Lord Carrington is due to meet his Soviet counterpart, Mr. Gromyko, who has just arrived back in Moscow after talks with Polish leaders on their internal crisis. Cut-price milk, subsidized by the common market, could soon be available in British junior schools. According to the Agriculture Minister, Mr. Peter Walker, after years of negotiation, the EEC has finally agreed to help local authorities and pay 7p a pint subsidy. Mrs. Thatcher withdrew free school milk 10 years ago when she was Education Secretary. A French trawler which hijacked a Royal Navy boarding party has been forced to dock in Grimsby. 2 fishery protection vessels and a helicopter chased the vessel, the Jean Mimoz, for 2 hours before the skipper gave up. The Jean Mimoz was towed into Grimsby with the Royal Navy party in charge. They'd boarded her 70 miles out in the North Sea to investigate her nets and told the skipper and crew to head for Grimsby. The skipper ignored their instructions and tried to sail for France instead. Eventually, after ramming 1 fishery protection vessel, he was turned back. Britain's athletes have had a successful day. Both the men's and women's teams have qualified for next month's European Cup finals. Sebastian Coe ran a superb race in Helsinki this afternoon to help the men to victory in their semi-final. Coe has only just recovered from a virus infection, but he led the 800 metres almost from the start. David Coleman is the commentator.
And there goes Coe, and he is in a different world. He's gone right away. Look at this. It is unbelievable. He's taken 15 metres practically in the last 18. Russia second, Finland third.
Another Briton who's been ill recently, Alan Wells, ran in the 200 metres.
This time they get away, and Wells got a beauty. He really did. He's closing up on the Russian, and Wells has run a magnificent bend. Running the outside going well is Petkov from Bulgaria, but it's Alan Wells all the way. He's 2-3 metres clear. On the inside is Zaric of Yugoslavia. There's only one winner of this. He's so far clear. Alan Wells has run right away from the field. Muravyev struggling. Wells wins. Muravyev second. Third was Zaric, and fourth, Yoshio of Sweden.
Britain's men finished in first place, 6 points ahead of the Soviet Union. Both those teams qualify for the finals in Zagreb. And the women won their semi-final in Edinburgh, so they too will compete in next month's finals. Finally, although Prince Charles has been playing polo for some years now, today was the first time he's worn a protective face visor. The mask made its royal debut in a match at Cowdray Park in Sussex. A sensible precaution, perhaps, with his wedding less than a month away. And his captain says he's playing better now that he's got that extra security. The Prince was on the winning side, and he scored a goal. And that's the news on 2 tonight. Let's just take a quick look at the weather chart.
Well, Northern Ireland and Western Scotland will have a dull and wet start to tomorrow, but this should give way to brighter, showery weather in the afternoon. Eastern Scotland, Wales, northern and western parts of England will be dry and in places quite bright at first, but thickening cloud and outbreaks of rain will spread from the west during the late morning or afternoon. Southeastern areas of England will be dry with sunny intervals for much of the day, although even here a little rain is likely in the evening. It'll be generally rather cool and windy. Well, now on to the second in the series, examining Britain's long-term industrial future in the Money programme.